Some people walk into a room and everyone listens. Others speak for hours, yet say nothing that sticks. Why? Because communication is not just about talking. It's about connection. The difference between being heard and being understood can make or break your relationships, your career, and your life. In a world full of noise, those who master the art of effective communication rise above. They don't just speak. They move people. They calm conflict. They build bridges. They create trust, influence, and impact without needing to shout. This audiobook isn't about becoming louder. It's about becoming clearer. It's about learning how to connect, not just communicate. If you're ready to transform how you speak, listen, and influence, you're in the right place. Make sure to subscribe to this series, because what you're about to hear will not only reshape how you speak, but how people respond to you. Now, let's begin. Chapter 1. The first word is not spoken. Before any word is ever spoken, something else happens first. It's the glance before the greeting, the pause before the reply, the quiet, invisible energy that passes between people. This is where communication truly begins. Not with words, but with presence. And those who master this invisible first step carry an advantage that cannot be taught in schools or unlocked through vocabulary alone. They understand something deeper. People don't respond to your words, they respond to how they feel around you. Every interaction carries weight. Not because of how loud someone speaks or how smart they sound, but because of what happens beneath the surface. Have you ever met someone who made you feel instantly safe, or someone whose words didn't match their energy, so you didn't trust them, no matter what they said? That is the real art of communication. It's not technique, it's alignment. And in this first chapter, we begin not with language, but with awareness. Imagine walking into a room where nobody knows you. Your posture says more than your introduction. The way you breathe, the way you look at someone, the way you listen when they speak, all of it speaks louder than your first sentence. The most persuasive communicators, those who win trust quickly, those who diffuse tension, those who influence without trying, are not necessarily born with it. They've learned to notice, not just what to say, but when not to say it. And even more importantly, how to carry the kind of energy that opens others up. It starts with stillness, not being passive, but being present. There's a calm that comes from people who aren't trying to impress you. They're not over-explaining, not oversharing, not trying to fill every silence. Instead, they make space for you, and in that space, connection grows. If you've ever sat with someone who made you feel seen without needing to speak, then you already understand this. Communication is first an emotional experience. Language comes second. In relationships, this becomes even more critical. When tension rises, most people talk too much. They rush to defend themselves, to be understood, to fix what feels broken. But often, the most powerful thing you can do is pause. Let silence breathe. Let the moment land. When you don't rush to speak, you allow the other person to feel heard even before you respond. And in that feeling, walls start to lower. In business, the same principle applies. Deals are made not just on logic, but on trust. And trust is built not on scripts, but on resonance. That feeling that says, I see you. I understand you. I'm not just selling something, I'm listening. People don't remember your pitch, they remember how you made them feel. This is what most communication training misses. They teach words, they teach delivery, but they miss the deeper truth. Your words only land if your energy carries them properly. Let's go deeper. Confidence in communication is not loud. It is not about dominating the space or proving your intelligence. Real confidence is subtle. It's calm. It doesn't need validation. It listens more than it speaks. It asks thoughtful questions. It speaks with intention, not for reaction. People who communicate effectively aren't the ones who say the most, they're the ones who say what matters, and say it in a way that makes people stop and feel. You can feel the difference between someone who is talking at you and someone who is truly with you. The first feels like noise. The second feels like music. It's the difference between shouting across a canyon and sitting beside someone at a quiet fire. Great communicators don't try to be impressive. They try to be real. And in their realness, they gain the most rare kind of influence, emotional influence. Let's take this even further. Your voice carries your inner state. If you're anxious, your tone tightens. If you're defensive, your volume rises. If you're hiding something, your cadence skips. You can't hide your internal world forever. It leaks out through your words. That's why the most effective communicators start with the inside. They regulate their breathing. They ground their thoughts. They speak only when they are centered. Not perfect, but present. It's not about memorizing lines or faking charisma. It's about creating congruence between who you are and how you show up. When your internal world matches your external expression, people trust you instantly. You become the kind of person they listen to, not because you demand attention, but because your presence earns it. This doesn't mean you'll always say the right thing. It doesn't mean people will always agree with you. But it means your message will land clean. You won't confuse people with mixed signals. You won't leave others wondering what you really meant. You won't create emotional dissonance. And that clarity, emotional and verbal, is what creates deep, lasting respect. Think about the people you've admired most in life. Not celebrities, but the people who walked into your life and left a mark. Maybe it was a teacher, a coach, a mentor, a stranger. Think about how they communicated. Likely, it wasn't with fancy words. It was with a steady gaze, a calming tone, a presence that made you feel like you mattered. That's the power of aligned communication. It doesn't just inform, it transforms. In the next chapters, we'll explore everything from body language to conflict resolution, from emotional intelligence to persuasive storytelling. But we had to start here. Because until you understand that how you show up is more important than what you say, you'll keep missing the real art. So today, before your next conversation, try something different. Don't rehearse what you'll say. Instead, slow your breath. Center yourself. Then walk into that room, or make that call, or sit with that person, not with a script, but with presence. Let your first word be felt, not just heard. Because that's where connection begins. And in this world, real connection is the greatest power you can carry. Chapter 2. The voice that shapes the room. There is a kind of silence that speaks louder than noise. A calm, steady voice can command more attention than a scream. In every room, in every relationship, and in every conversation, there is an unspoken rule. People follow the energy that feels the most grounded. And that energy is often communicated through voice, not just tone, but presence. Because how you speak tells people everything about what's happening inside you, even before they understand your words. Some people try to force their way into conversations. They speak quickly, they interrupt, they raise their volume. But what they gain in sound, they lose in impact. Others speak slowly, intentionally, they take pauses, they listen as much as they speak, and somehow they seem to hold more weight. That's not a trick. It's not charisma. It's because they've learned to use their voice, not just as sound, but as signal. The signal that says, I'm not here to win, I'm here to connect. The most persuasive communicators have one thing in common. Their voice makes people feel safe. There is no panic, no neediness, no aggression. They speak with assurance, but not arrogance. They communicate not to overpower, but to open. And that's what people are drawn to, because in a world full of rushed words and anxious exchanges, calm becomes magnetic. Think of the last time someone truly listened to you. Not with their ears, but with their full attention. Maybe they nodded at the right moments. Maybe they stayed quiet when you needed space. Maybe they responded in a way that felt natural, not rehearsed. That kind of moment stays with you. Not because of what was said, but because of how it was shared. That's the art we're unpacking here. The art of making your voice a tool for connection, not just communication. Now here's what most people miss. The voice isn't just sound. It's shaped by your body, by your breath, by your emotions. When you're stressed, your chest tightens, your words speed up, your tone sharpens. People hear that. Even if they don't understand why, they feel it, and it affects how they respond. But when you breathe fully, when you ground yourself before speaking, your tone softens, your pace slows, your words begin to land. Not because you're being theatrical, but because you're being real. Children can sense this instinctively. That's why they respond better to calm authority than to screaming chaos. And adults? We're just big children in more complicated environments. We still respond to tone more than content. That's why two people can say the same thing, and one will inspire trust while the other triggers defensiveness. It's not the words, it's the way. In leadership, this becomes even more powerful. The most respected leaders rarely raise their voices. They speak simply, clearly, and calmly. When others panic, they ground. When things go wrong, they don't lash out, they slow down. Their voice carries not just information, but direction. It tells people, we're going to be okay. And in that space, others breathe easier, listen closer, and follow more willingly. Let's go deeper. Voice is also rhythm. Some people speak in flat, robotic patterns. Their words all sound the same. No highs, no lows, no color. That kind of voice might deliver facts, but it never stirs the heart. It doesn't hold attention, it doesn't evoke emotion. But when someone varies their tone, when they pause in the right place, when their words rise and fall like music, suddenly even simple sentences feel powerful. That's not acting, that's feeling. When you believe what you're saying, your voice moves naturally. You emphasize the right words without thinking. You slow down at moments that matter. You let silence fill the gaps, and silence is not your enemy. It's your ally. Silence makes space. It gives weight to what comes next. It invites the listener in. That's why great communicators never rush to fill every second. They trust the space between. Now let's talk about vulnerability. Most people think being vulnerable means oversharing, telling your whole life story, crying in public. That's not what we mean. Vulnerability in communication is when your voice matches your heart, when you're willing to say something honest, even if it's not perfect. It's when you speak without trying to perform, when your tone reflects your truth. That's what breaks down walls. That's what makes people lean in. In relationships, vulnerability sounds like this. I don't have the answer, but I care. That hurt me, but I want to understand. I was wrong, and I want to make it right. Those words, spoken from a steady voice, change everything. They don't just resolve conflict, they deepen connection. Because people don't need you to be perfect. They need you to be present and real. In business, vulnerability can sound like, we missed the mark here, and we're learning from it. Here's what we believe, and here's how we're growing. These aren't admissions of weakness, they're signals of strength. Because in a world full of polished lies, honesty becomes a competitive advantage, and when your voice carries that honesty, people listen not just with their ears, but with their trust. Let's shift focus again. Your voice is also shaped by your intention. Why are you speaking? To impress, to defend, to connect. People can feel that. Even if your words are perfect, if your intent is off, it creates friction. But when your intention is clean, when you speak to understand, to contribute, to connect, your voice carries a different frequency. It's not about perfection. It's about alignment. Let me give you a moment to reflect. Think about the voices that made you feel small, Maybe they were sharp, dismissive, rushed. Now think about the voices that made you feel safe. Maybe they were slow, warm, and steady. That contrast lives in all of us. We've all been both, and the difference wasn't the vocabulary. It was the energy behind the words. This chapter isn't just about how to sound better. It's about becoming aware of how your voice affects people. Because you're always communicating something, even in silence. The real mastery begins when you start choosing how you want others to feel after hearing you, not just what you want them to know. As we close this chapter, here's your challenge. The next time you speak, pay attention, not to the words but to your breath, to your pace, to your tone, to the moment before you reply. Let your voice carry presence, not pressure. Let your silence be intentional. Let your words feel honest, not perfect, just true. Because when you master your voice, you don't just change how people hear you, you change how they feel around you. And that's the beginning of real connection. Chapter 3. Listening that transforms lives. People think communication starts with speaking, but that's only half the truth. Real communication begins with listening, and not the kind of listening where you wait for your turn to talk. Not the kind where you're planning your response while someone else is still speaking. No, this kind of listening is different. It's deeper, it's human. It has the power to transform relationships, build trust, and create understanding where there was none. The world doesn't suffer from a lack of people talking. It suffers from a lack of people hearing. People are desperate to be understood, but most of the time, they're not really heard. They're nodded at, they're tolerated, they're answered before they finish, and over time, that experience teaches them to shut down, to hide, to speak less. But when someone truly listens, really listens, it changes something in them. It tells them they matter, that their voice has a place, and in that moment, communication becomes connection. There's a stillness in real listening, a kind of silence that isn't empty. It's attentive. It doesn't rush. It doesn't interrupt. It lets the other person breathe, speak, exist. That stillness is rare. And that's why it's powerful, because when people feel safe enough to open up, they don't just give you words, they give you truth. And truth is the foundation of every strong relationship, whether personal or professional. You can spot a great listener by the way people respond to them. People open up. They share more. They feel seen. Because a great listener doesn't need to steal the spotlight. They know the power isn't in showing how much they know, it's in showing how much they care. Their listening isn't passive, it's active. It's full of presence. They're not waiting to impress, they're there to receive. Think about the people in your life who made you feel safe enough to talk about the hard things. Maybe it was a friend, a mentor, a stranger. They didn't judge, they didn't fix, they just stayed. And in that space, you found the courage to say what you'd been holding inside. That's not an accident. That's what real listening does. It makes room for honesty to breathe. But real listening isn't always easy. Sometimes it means holding back your own opinions long enough to fully understand someone else's. It means not rushing to offer solutions when what they need is silence. It means letting go of the urge to control the conversation, and instead allowing it to unfold naturally. That kind of listening takes discipline, maturity, self-awareness, and most of all, empathy. Empathy is what turns hearing into listening. Without empathy, listening becomes a performance. You nod, you smile, you wait, but you don't feel. With empathy, something shifts. You start to imagine what it's like to be in their shoes. You begin to care, not just about what they're saying, but why they're saying it. You hear the words, but you also hear the pain, the hope, the fear underneath. And that's when connection happens. In professional settings, good listening can be the difference between conflict and collaboration, between missed opportunities and powerful insights. Leaders who listen well earn more respect because they show people that their input matters. Teams work better when everyone feels heard. Innovation grows when ideas aren't shut down before they've had a chance to form. Listening isn't a soft skill, it's a strategic advantage. In romantic relationships, it's everything. Misunderstandings don't happen because people speak different languages. They happen because people don't listen. They assume, they react, they defend, and walls go up. But when partners learn to listen, really listen, those walls begin to fall. The space between them becomes safer. Conversations stop being battles and start being bridges. Listening also matters in friendships, in families, in parenting. Kids don't always need lectures. They need ears. They need to know someone is really paying attention, even when their words are messy, even when their emotions are loud. When a child feels listened to, they grow in confidence. They begin to trust not just the listener but also themselves. Now let's talk about barriers. What stops most people from being good listeners? Distraction, ego, fear. Distraction is everywhere. Phones, thoughts, noise. It pulls your attention away, even when you mean well. Ego tells you that your story is more important, that your opinion must be heard. And fear keeps you from listening fully, because you're afraid of what you might hear, afraid of being wrong, afraid of having to change. But none of those barriers are stronger than choice. You can choose to listen deeply. You can choose to slow down, to be present, to open your heart. You can train yourself to hear not just the words but the meaning behind them. It's not about being perfect, it's about being willing. Start with eye contact. Not staring, not intimidating, but soft, steady eye contact. It says, "I'm here with you." Put down distractions. Face the person fully. Don't glance at your phone. Don't multitask. Give them the gift of your presence. That's where trust begins. Then listen without fixing. Most people don't want advice. Not at first. They want space. Space to vent, to cry, to make sense of their own thoughts. If they need advice, they'll ask. But if you jump in too soon, you interrupt their process. You turn their pain into your project, and that creates distance. Instead, reflect. Repeat back what you've heard, in your own words. Not to parrot them, but to show you understand. Say things like, "So it sounds like you felt left out," or "You were really hurt by that." Simple reflections build a bridge. They say, "I'm with you in this." And finally, don't listen just to reply. Listen to understand. Let go of your need to be right, your need to impress, your need to always be the one speaking. Because communication isn't about volume, it's about value. And sometimes the most valuable thing you can offer is your silence. Let this chapter settle into your heart. Real listening is rare, but it's not a talent. It's a choice. And the more you choose it, the more powerful you become. Not because of what you say, but because of how deeply you hear. People don't remember perfect conversations. They remember the ones where they felt safe, seen, heard. And if you can give someone that, you've already said more than words ever could. Chapter 4. Confidence without volume. How quiet voices make the loudest impact. Confidence is often misunderstood. People think it's about being the loudest in the room. The one always talking, the person who dominates conversations and never hesitates to speak. But real confidence is something quieter, something deeper. It doesn't need noise to be felt. It's the calm in the middle of chaos. The pause before the answer. The strength that doesn't scream. And it's that kind of confidence that makes the biggest impact in communication. There are people who walk into a room and immediately shift the energy, not because they say something but because they carry something, a kind of inner certainty, a quiet clarity. You can feel it before they speak, and when they finally do, the room listens. Because what they say has weight. It's not the volume of their voice, it's the substance behind it. That kind of presence is built over time. It comes from knowing who you are, from being grounded in your values, from not needing to prove yourself to every person you meet. People who are truly confident don't talk to impress. They talk to express. They're not chasing approval. They're sharing perspective. And because of that, their words land differently. You don't need to fake energy or force charisma to communicate well. You need authenticity. You need to be rooted. When you know your own worth, you don't chase validation with every sentence. You speak when it matters, and when you do, people listen because your voice carries integrity, not insecurity. The quiet communicator understands the power of pauses. They don't fill every gap with noise. They're not afraid of silence. They know that silence isn't awkward, it's reflective. It gives people space to think, to absorb, to feel, and that space is often where the real message lives. In meetings, the quiet communicator isn't the one interrupting or trying to dominate. They're the one observing, listening, reading the room. And when they finally contribute, what they say is often the most impactful, not because it's loud, but because it's thoughtful, because it cuts through the noise and speaks directly to the core of the issue. This kind of confidence also shows up in how they handle disagreement. They don't panic when someone challenges their point. They don't raise their voice or get defensive. They stay calm. They respond, not react. Because they're not trying to win the argument. They're trying to understand the truth. Think of great leaders, the kind who inspire without shouting, the ones who carry themselves with humility, not arrogance. Their confidence comes from preparation, from wisdom, from service, and that's the kind of communicator who changes minds, not just moods. In relationships, quiet confidence brings safety. It allows conversations to go deeper because there's no need for constant reassurance. The person you're talking to feels secure, not pressured. They feel heard, not judged. And that creates the foundation for emotional intimacy. Parents who communicate with quiet confidence raise children who feel secure. Partners who listen more than they talk build stronger bonds. Friends who don't need to be the center of attention often become the ones others trust the most. Because their silence isn't emptiness, it's strength. But building this kind of inner confidence doesn't happen overnight. It requires a process. First, you must confront your own fears. The fear of not being enough. The fear of being misunderstood. The fear of losing approval. These fears often drive the need to overtalk, overshare, or overcompensate. Instead of running from them, you have to meet them. You have to sit with them. And slowly, you begin to realize that those fears are loud, but they're not true. You don't need to be everything for everyone. You just need to be you, fully, consistently, quietly. Next comes clarity. You must know your message. What do you believe in? What do you stand for? What kind of communicator do you want to be? When your message is clear, your delivery doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be honest. And that's what makes it memorable. Then comes the discipline of restraint. Not every thought needs to be spoken. Not every moment needs to be filled. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. To simply nod, to breathe, to let your presence do the work. That restraint builds tension. The good kind. It pulls people in. Think of a skilled public speaker. The way they pause before a key sentence. The way they look the audience in the eye. The way their silence makes you lean forward. That's not an accident. That's trained restraint. That's quiet confidence in action. In daily conversations, you can practice this. Let someone finish without interrupting. Pause before you respond. Let your tone stay low and steady, even when the topic is emotional. Use fewer words, but make each one count. Ask questions that go beneath the surface, and most importantly, listen like it matters, because it does. Confidence also shows up in how you handle vulnerability. People who are truly confident aren't afraid to admit mistakes, to say I don't know, to apologize when they've hurt someone. That level of honesty takes more strength than any loud speech ever could. And it builds more trust too. The loudest person in the room isn't always the strongest. Often they're masking insecurity, trying to fill a void. But the one who can sit in stillness, who can choose words carefully, who can speak with calm instead of chaos, that's the person people remember. That's the person who leads without yelling, who inspires without performing. In your own life, try this. The next time you enter a room, don't worry about what to say, worry about how to be. Let your posture speak for you. Let your eye contact say, "I'm here and I'm present." Let your quiet focus become your signature. Then, when it's time to speak, speak clearly, not quickly. Speak gently, not timidly. Speak directly, not defensively. And then stop. Let your words land. And watch what happens. People will feel something different around you. They may not be able to name it, but they'll feel safer, calmer, more open. And when that happens, communication becomes more than information. It becomes transformation. Real confidence never demands attention. It commands it, without noise, without ego, without force. And when you carry that kind of energy into every conversation, you don't just become a better communicator. You become a better human. Chapter 5. Listening is a superpower. Why being heard starts with hearing others. People often chase the perfect words, the sharpest comebacks, the most persuasive arguments. They want to be heard, to be respected, to be admired for their ability to speak. But the greatest communicators don't start with speaking, they start with listening. Listening is not a passive act. It's not just about staying silent while someone else talks. True listening is a skill, a discipline, a superpower. It's the ability to set aside your own noise, your thoughts, your assumptions, your desire to respond, and give someone else your full, undivided attention. When someone feels truly heard, something opens up inside them. Defensiveness melts. Walls fall, hearts soften. Listening creates space for truth. And in a world that's constantly screaming to be heard, the rare presence of someone who actually listens is unforgettable. Think about the people you trust the most. Chances are, they're not the ones who always talk over you or finish your sentences. They're the ones who let you finish your thoughts, who look you in the eye, who don't rush you, who sit in silence, nodding, present, patient. You remember them because they made you feel seen. Listening is not about waiting your turn to talk. It's about entering the world of the other person. It's about suspending your judgments and just being there with them, for them, without needing to fix or correct. It's about holding space, not controlling the narrative. When you listen this way, people sense it immediately. They speak differently. They go deeper. They reveal more, because they know they're safe with you. And that's where connection is born. Not in the talking, but in the hearing. Listening well requires intention. You have to train yourself to stay present, to resist distractions, to notice not just words but tone, body language, the things left unsaid, a sigh between sentences, a pause that lingers, a shift in eye contact. These are all part of the message, and when you pay attention to them, you hear what's really being said. Too often, people listen with the intent to reply. They're forming a comeback before the speaker even finishes. That's not listening. That's waiting. And it kills the energy in a conversation. It makes the speaker feel like they're being tolerated, not understood. But when you truly listen, you don't rush to respond. You don't hijack the story. You let the silence linger if needed. You follow their pace, not yours. And when it's your turn to speak, your words will carry more weight because they come from a place of presence, not performance. This kind of listening transforms relationships. In romantic partnerships, it builds trust. In friendships, it creates loyalty. In business, it forges respect. When people know you'll actually listen, they bring you their truth. And truth is where influence lives. There's another layer to listening that's often overlooked. Listening to understand, not agree. You don't have to agree with someone to understand their perspective. You just have to care enough to try. That effort alone changes everything. When someone feels heard, even if you don't agree with them, they leave the conversation feeling respected, and respect often matters more than agreement. It keeps doors open, it keeps hearts soft, it keeps the conversation going. This is especially important in conflict. Most arguments escalate not because of the issue itself, but because neither side feels heard. They shout louder, repeat themselves, interrupt, just trying to be understood. But if even one person decides to truly listen, the whole dynamic shifts. Listening doesn't mean surrendering your opinion. It means giving the other person the dignity of being heard. It means saying without words, "You matter, your thoughts matter, I'm here." And sometimes that's all it takes to disarm the tension. There's power in reflecting back what you've heard, not to mimic, but to confirm. Saying things like, "So what I hear you saying is," or "It sounds like you feel." These simple phrases let the other person know you're engaged, not just nodding politely. It also helps you clarify. Sometimes people don't even know what they really feel until they hear it reflected back. Your presence becomes a mirror, a space for them to discover their own truth. Listening also deepens your own understanding of the world. Every person you meet knows something you don't, has lived something you haven't, has seen life from a different angle. When you listen, you grow. Your worldview expands, your empathy stretches. Children, especially, need to be listened to, not dismissed, not hurried. When a child speaks and an adult leans in, makes eye contact, and really listens, that child learns something powerful. My voice matters, and that lesson shapes their confidence for life. The same goes for elderly people. Many feel invisible in a fast-moving world, but when someone slows down to hear their stories, their wisdom, their memories, it brings light to their eyes. It restores dignity. It reminds them they still matter. Great leaders are great listeners. They don't assume they have all the answers. They ask questions. They stay curious. They create cultures where people feel safe to speak up. And in return, they earn loyalty, not because they control, but because they care. In today's world where everyone is distracted, scrolling, multitasking, half present, just being fully there with someone is rare. And that rarity makes it powerful. If you want to stand out, don't speak more. Listen better. Try it. The next time someone speaks to you, put your phone away, look them in the eye. Don't interrupt. Don't think about your response. Just be there. Let them finish. Breathe, and then respond slowly, thoughtfully. Watch how the whole energy of the conversation changes. You don't have to be brilliant to be memorable. You just have to care. And listening is how you show it. Listening also applies to communication with yourself. Inner dialogue, self-reflection, journaling, sitting in silence and paying attention to your thoughts, your emotions, your patterns. When you learn to listen to yourself, you communicate with more clarity and truth. You stop projecting. You start connecting. People who listen to themselves are less reactive, less insecure, less needy, because they've heard their own fears, their own pain, their own dreams, and they don't need constant validation from others. They speak from alignment, not emptiness. In a noisy world, listening is a form of rebellion. It's a radical act of love, of patience, of humility, and it changes people. Not just the ones being listened to, but the one doing the listening. So if you want to become a powerful communicator, start here. Not with words, not with techniques, but with presence, with quiet, with attention. Let the world shout. Let others chase the spotlight. You be the one who listens deeply, who hears what's not being said, who creates safe spaces with silence, and who, in doing so, leaves a legacy of understanding. Because in the end, people won't always remember what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And nothing makes people feel more valued than being truly heard. Chapter 6. The Power of Body Language. Speaking without saying a word. There are times when a person walks into a room and before they even speak, everyone notices. It's not their voice. It's not their clothes. It's the silent language they speak, the way they carry themselves, the way they move, the way their eyes scan the room with quiet confidence. That's body language, and it says more than words ever could. Communication is not just about what we say. In fact, most of what we communicate is nonverbal. It's in the tilt of the head, the openness of the arms, the firmness of a handshake. It's in a lingering glance or a quick shift in posture. These are silent signals, but they are loud in meaning. And the most persuasive minds in the world know exactly how to use them. People are constantly reading you consciously or not. They read your energy, your presence, your micro-expressions, and they make decisions in seconds about whether they can trust you, whether you're confident, whether you're authentic. Words might explain, but your body confirms. Think of someone telling you, "I'm fine," but their shoulders are slumped, eyes looking down, voice barely audible. You don't believe the words. You believe the body. Because the body doesn't lie. It shows what the mouth tries to hide. This is why great communicators study their own body language. They don't just speak with purpose, they move with purpose. They know that openness invites connection, while closed-off posture creates distance. They know that leaning in signals interest, while pulling back signals disinterest. They understand the unspoken conversation. Confidence, for example, is instantly visible in the body. It shows up in posture, shoulders back, chest open, head held high. It's not arrogance. It's presence. You walk like you have a right to take up space. You speak like your words matter. You look others in the eye because you're not hiding. Eye contact is one of the most powerful tools in body language. It creates intimacy, trust, and respect. When you maintain eye contact, people feel seen, not stared at, seen. It shows you're not afraid of connection. You're not shrinking from vulnerability. But eye contact must be balanced. Too much, and it can feel aggressive. Too little, and it feels evasive. The key is to stay present. Don't look through people. Look with them. Let your eyes say, "I'm here, I'm listening, I respect you." Your face is another map of emotion. A slight raise of the eyebrows, a tiny twitch of the lip, a sudden tension in the jaw. These micro movements speak volumes. They reveal what's really going on beneath the surface, and people pick up on them faster than you think. Even silence has a body language. A pause before responding can signal thoughtfulness or hesitation. The way you breathe, the way you turn your body toward or away from someone. It all matters. It all adds to the conversation. Your hands, for instance, are storytellers. They add rhythm, emphasis, and shape to your words. Open hands signal honesty. Hidden hands trigger suspicion. Pointing can feel aggressive. Gentle gestures feel inclusive. Great communicators use their hands to draw people in, not push them away. Proximity plays a role too. How close you stand to someone affects the energy. Standing too close may feel intrusive. Too far, and it creates disconnection. Understanding personal space and how it shifts based on the relationship is part of mastering presence. Mirroring is another subtle yet powerful tool. When two people are in sync, they naturally mirror each other's posture, gestures, and tone. But the best communicators do it intentionally, not to manipulate, but to connect. A slight lean, a matched pace of speech. It builds rapport without a word. But body language isn't just about how others see you. It's about how you feel about yourself. There's a loop between body and mind. When you carry yourself with confidence, even if you don't feel it at first, your mind starts to believe it. Power posing, standing tall, arms wide, can actually reduce stress and boost your sense of control. The inverse is also true. If you hunch over, Fold into yourself. Look at the ground. You're telling your mind you're small, weak, unworthy. Over time, your posture shapes your identity. This is why working on body language is not vanity, it's a form of self-respect. Body language also helps regulate emotion. When you're nervous, you can shift your breath. When you're angry, relax your hands. These physical shifts can calm the mind. You don't have to let your body betray your peace. You can train it to anchor you. In relationships, body language is often louder than words. A partner may say they're listening, but if their body is turned away, arms crossed, phone in hand, it doesn't feel like love. Presence is physical. Attention is physical. You can't fake it with words. And in professional settings, body language often determines how seriously you're taken. You may have the best ideas, but if you slouch, mumble, avoid eye contact, you won't be heard. Presence sells the message before you even speak. This is why preparation matters. Before a meeting, a date, a difficult conversation, take a moment. Breathe. Ground yourself. Stand tall. Remind your body that it belongs, that your voice deserves space. Let your posture speak your worth. And don't forget the body language of listening. Yes, listening has a language. Nodding, tilting the head slightly, leaning in, maintaining an open expression. These subtle movements say, I'm here with you. Keep going. They build trust faster than compliments. Parents teach their children how to feel about themselves by how they look at them. A warm gaze builds security. A cold stare creates fear. A parent's body language becomes a child's inner voice. That's how powerful it is. Leaders shape culture not just with policies, but with presence. A calm posture during crisis. A gentle hand on the shoulder of a nervous employee. Eye contact during difficult news. These moments stick. They define how people remember the leader. In every part of life, body language builds or breaks connection. And unlike words, you can't take it back. People may forget what you said, but they will remember how your presence made them feel. Your energy becomes your message. So practice awareness. Stand in front of a mirror. Watch yourself speak. Notice how your body moves when you're confident, when you're unsure. Adjust. Refine. Not to perform, but to align, to make your body a reflection of your truth. Great communication is not just about having the right words. It's about being the right presence. A presence that welcomes, that calms, that inspires. A presence that people feel safe around. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You need to be clear. You need to be present. You need to show up in your body the way you want others to feel in your presence. Open, steady, alive. In the end, your words will fade, but your energy will stay with people long after the conversation ends. Your body will speak for you. Make sure it says something worth remembering. Chapter 7. Listening to understand, not just to respond. In a world that moves fast and talks loud, few people truly listen. Most wait for their turn to speak, nodding just enough to seem polite, all the while rehearsing their next sentence. But real communication, the kind that builds trust, softens pain, and creates lasting bonds, begins with listening. Deep, honest, heart-centered listening. Not to respond, not to fix, but to understand. When someone speaks and feels truly heard, something shifts. Defenses fall. Tension melts. What was once conflict becomes connection. It's not magic. It's presence. It's the willingness to step outside of your own head and enter theirs for a moment. That's the difference between ordinary conversation and powerful communication. Listening is not a passive act. It requires effort. It demands silence, not just in the mouth but in the mind. You have to quiet the voice that wants to interrupt, advise, correct, or judge. That voice is loud in most people. It takes discipline to hush it and simply absorb what another person is saying. And it's not just about hearing words, it's about noticing tone, pace, pauses. What they say, what they don't say. The eyes that flicker when they mention a name. The shoulders that rise when they talk about work. The silence that lingers after a story. These are the spaces where truth lives, and only a good listener can catch it. Empathy lives in those moments. And empathy is what makes communication feel safe. When people feel safe, they speak honestly. They stop performing. They stop hiding. And in that space of honesty, real growth happens, both in relationships and within the self. Great leaders know this. They know that to lead people, you must first hear them. Not just their results, not just their tasks, their fears, their doubts, their frustrations. When a team member feels heard, they become loyal, they become creative, they become invested. Parents, too, must become students of listening. Children don't always have the words, but they always have emotions. A child may not say, "I'm scared," or "I feel unseen," but they show it in tantrums, withdrawal, sudden anger. Listening to a child means watching the body, hearing the silence, feeling the shift in energy. And when they are heard without being dismissed, their inner world starts to organize itself. The same is true in romantic relationships. One of the most common complaints isn't about money or time. It's, "I don't feel heard." And that lack of listening creates distance. Two people might live under the same roof, yet drift apart, simply because one or both never truly heard the other, not with judgment, not with solutions, just with presence. When someone comes to you with pain, listen without trying to fix it. Most people don't want solutions. They want space. They want to be seen inside their struggle. They want to know their emotions are valid. That alone often heals more than advice ever could. Listening is also a mirror. It reflects who you are. If you can't listen deeply, it usually means you're not connected to your own emotions. You avoid discomfort. You rush to solve so you don't have to feel. But growth lies in discomfort, in sitting with it, in holding space without filling it. The most persuasive minds in the world are also the best listeners. Why? Because they understand what people need. They don't guess. They listen so well, the other person feels known, even before saying much. That creates trust. And trust is the foundation of influence. In conflict, listening is the doorway to resolution. When tempers flare and egos rise, it's tempting to defend, to attack, to be right. But nothing softens anger faster than a sincere, "I hear you," not as a tactic, as a truth. When people feel understood, their need to prove something fades. Listening also sharpens your emotional intelligence. You become aware of patterns in others and in yourself. You start to notice how people mask insecurity with sarcasm, or how silence can mean agreement or deep resistance. You begin to hear between the lines, and that gives you insight few others have. Listening changes how you carry conversations. You stop interrupting. You pause before replying. You ask questions not to trap someone, but to invite them deeper. Your presence becomes an invitation, not a performance, and people remember how you made them feel safe enough to speak their truth. But to be a better listener, you must also confront your impatience. In today's world, attention spans are shrinking. People skim, people scroll, but listening requires slowing down. It's inconvenient, it's uncomfortable, but it's worth it. In silence, you'll hear more than in noise. In quiet presence, you'll build more than with clever words. Silence isn't empty. It's full of observation, of respect, of care. A well-timed silence can carry more love than the most elegant sentence. Technology makes this harder. We're trained to reply quickly, to multitask, to divide our focus. But real listening can't be multitasked. You can't truly hear someone while typing, while thinking about your to-do list, or checking your phone. You must choose the moment. Protect it. Be in it. Start small. In your next conversation, catch yourself when you want to interrupt. Instead, stay quiet. Let the other person finish their thought. Watch their eyes. Feel their pace. Respond slowly. You'll be amazed how much deeper the conversation goes. Over time, your relationships will shift. People will feel drawn to you, not because you say the perfect thing, but because they feel heard in your presence. You become the safe place in a noisy world, the one who gets it, the one who listens, and perhaps the most powerful benefit. When you listen well, people start listening to you, not because you demand it, because you earned it. That's the paradox. The best communicators speak less and hear more, and in doing so, they carry more influence than the loudest voices in the room. Your voice matters, but your ears, your silent, steady, attentive ears, might matter more, because words speak to the mind, but listening speaks to the soul. Chapter 8. The Hidden Power of Nonverbal Communication. Long before words existed, humans communicated through gestures, posture, and expressions: a raised brow, soft smile, a clenched jaw. These subtle cues carried warnings, affection, dominance, or safety. And to this day, despite all our words and devices, nonverbal communication still speaks the loudest. The body does not lie. It reveals truths even when the mouth tries to cover them. Every time we walk into a room, our presence announces us before our voice does. The way we carry our shoulders, how we meet someone's gaze or avoid it, how open or closed our body is, it all tells a story. And others pick up on it, even if they don't realize it consciously. That's the secret power of body language. It works beneath awareness, yet it shapes how people see us, respond to us, and remember us. A confident person doesn't need to declare their confidence. It radiates in the way they stand upright, grounded, yet relaxed. Their eye contact is steady but not aggressive. Their voice doesn't rush, it settles. It fills the space without trying to dominate it. There's no need to prove, because their body already says, "I belong here." Compare that to someone unsure of themselves. Their feet may fidget, shoulders curl in, as if apologizing for taking up space. Eyes dart or drop, arms fold tightly, guarding the chest. Even if their words are strong, the body betrays them. And people feel that. They don't always understand it, but they feel it, and they respond accordingly. In personal relationships, nonverbal cues can build intimacy or destroy it. A partner may say, "I'm fine," but their stiff posture and flat tone say otherwise. And if you don't notice, or worse, if you dismiss it, it creates emotional distance. Over time, a relationship can wither, not because of what was said, but because of what wasn't acknowledged. Great communicators are masters at reading the unsaid. They don't just listen to words, they watch the face, the hands, the rhythm of the breath. They notice the drop in energy when a topic comes up, the way someone suddenly turns away when feeling vulnerable. These signals are soft, but they're honest. And when we notice them, we connect on a level beyond language. It also matters how you use your own body. A nod can encourage someone to keep speaking. A slight lean forward shows engagement. Mirroring someone's posture subtly creates comfort. It's a signal of rapport, but it must be natural. Forced body language feels fake, and people pick up on that too. Your facial expressions are especially powerful. A warm smile at the right moment can disarm tension. Raised eyebrows can show curiosity. A softened gaze can say, "I'm here with you," without a single word. But if your expressions don't match your words, it creates confusion. Say, "I'm happy for you," with a tight jaw and cold eyes, and the listener won't feel joy, they'll feel resentment. Words are only the surface. The face is the window. Your tone of voice is another pillar of nonverbal power. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it. A message of love can sound like an attack if the voice is sharp. A criticism can feel like care if the tone is soft, and steady. Volume, pace, pitch, these shape the emotional impact of your words. People often forget what you said, but they remember how your voice made them feel. Even silence is communication. The pause before a response, the long stillness after someone shares something painful. In those gaps you're speaking by your presence, by your willingness to hold space. The best communicators are not the loudest, they are the most present, and presence is felt. In professional settings, body language can influence perception more than credentials. A firm handshake, a relaxed, upright posture in meetings, making eye contact when disagreeing, not to dominate but to respect. These things build trust. They show emotional control. They communicate leadership before the resume is even read. On the flip side, poor nonverbal habits can ruin a message. If your eyes wander during a conversation, you seem distracted, even if you care deeply. If your arms are always crossed, you might come off as closed, defensive. If you constantly check your phone while someone's talking, they will feel unseen. These tiny acts chip away at trust. And once lost, trust is hard to earn back. Understanding nonverbal cues also helps in conflict. When someone's voice rises but their body tightens, it may not be anger, it may be fear. When someone suddenly withdraws mid-conversation, they may not be disinterested, they may be overwhelmed. When you can recognize these signs, you respond with wisdom, not assumption, and that de-escalates tension. We must also consider cultural differences. What means confidence in one culture might seem rude in another. Eye contact that's respectful in one context might be too intense in another. Touch that feels friendly to you might feel intrusive to someone else. Great communicators stay sensitive. They observe. They adjust. They listen with their whole body, not just their ears. Technology makes this more challenging. With video calls, much of body language gets flattened. Without tone, texts often feel cold or misinterpreted. That's why clarity and emotional awareness become even more important. A thoughtful pause, a well-placed "I hear you," even how quickly you reply can carry meaning. Silence after a vulnerable message can feel like rejection. So even online, we must be intentional. Your body is always speaking. Even when your mouth is closed, it's telling the world who you are, what you feel, and whether you are open or closed. So tune in, watch yourself in the mirror. Practice presence. Watch others. Learn their rhythms. See beyond their sentences. In the end, words are tools, but nonverbal cues are the glue. They make communication stick. They make it real. A person might forget what you said 5 years ago, but they'll never forget how safe you made them feel, how deeply you looked into their eyes, or how you stood quietly with them in a moment of pain. Communication is not just about articulation. It's about alignment. When your body, your tone, and your words are in harmony, you become believable, trustworthy, grounded. That is the root of effective communication. That is the source of connection. So speak. Yes, but also let your silence speak. Let your body speak. And most of all, let your presence say what words never could. Chapter 9. Listening that builds trust. There is something deeply rare in this world, something so simple, yet so powerful, that when it happens, people open up without even meaning to. They feel seen, heard, understood, and that something is real. Listening. In most conversations, people are not listening. They're waiting. Waiting to speak. Waiting to defend. Waiting to share their own story. But when someone truly listens, not just to respond, but to understand, the air shifts, walls come down, and connection is born. Trust doesn't grow through impressive speeches, it grows in moments of silence. In the stillness between someone's words, when another person leans in, nods gently, and holds space without rushing in to fix or judge, that space is sacred. It's where healing happens. It's where bonds are built. The most persuasive minds in the world know how to listen. Not passively, not mechanically, but with every cell in their body. Their eyes don't dart around the room. Their phone isn't in their hand. Their thoughts aren't somewhere else. They are here, with you, and because they give you their full attention, you feel safe enough to open your guard. This kind of listening is rare because it requires discipline. It requires setting aside your ego. It requires slowing down your thoughts and giving up the need to be right or to win. And that's hard, but when you do it, when you really listen, you gain something much greater than being right. You gain trust. It begins with presence. Not just physical, but mental. Are you really here? Or are you already thinking of what you'll say next? Real listening means tuning your awareness to the speaker like a radio dial, focusing not only on the words but the emotions behind them. The pauses, the shifts in tone, the tremble in their voice, the way they breathe in before speaking. These subtleties are where truth lives. Many people listen with an agenda. They want to help. They want to solve. But sometimes people don't want solutions. They want to be heard. They want to be witnessed. When a friend breaks down crying, saying, "I feel like I'm failing," the worst thing you can say is, "No, you're not. You're amazing." It may sound supportive, but it can feel like dismissal, because in that moment, they don't need reassurance. They need resonance. Great listeners mirror, not minimize. They say, "That sounds really hard. I can see how much it's weighing on you." That response holds space. It says, "I see you. I feel what you feel." And when people feel felt, they trust. This kind of listening is not just emotional. It's strategic. In business, leaders who listen well gain more loyalty than those who speak the loudest. Clients open up to people who listen without interrupting. Teams trust managers who don't just bark orders but sit down and ask, "What's your perspective?" Listening communicates respect, and respect builds influence. Listening also allows you to hear what's not being said. When someone avoids a topic, changes the subject, or hesitates before answering, that tells you something. When someone keeps talking about one detail but never mentions how they feel, it reveals a wound. These are the things you'll miss if you're only waiting to speak. In romantic relationships, listening is the lifeblood of intimacy. Most fights are not about the issue at hand. They're about feeling unheard. When a partner says, "You never help around the house," it's rarely just about chores. It's about feeling unsupported. When they say, "You don't talk to me anymore," it's about emotional disconnection. A great listener doesn't just hear the words, they listen to the longing beneath them. Listening also de-escalates conflict. When tensions rise, the natural urge is to interrupt, to defend. But if you stay calm, breathe, and say, "Help me understand what's really bothering you," something shifts. The other person may begin to cry instead of shout, or soften instead of shut down. Because when people feel heard, they feel safe, and safety dissolves aggression. But let's be honest, listening is hard. Especially when you're triggered. Especially when the other person is accusing or angry. That's when your body wants to fight or flee. But that is exactly when listening is most powerful, because to listen when it's easy builds rapport, but to listen when it's hard builds character. It helps to repeat back what you hear, not like a robot, but like a mirror. Say, "So what I hear you saying is, you feel overwhelmed because you're carrying too much." That shows the speaker that you're not just nodding, you're absorbing, and it helps them feel safe enough to go deeper. Silence is also a tool. When someone finishes a sentence, don't rush to fill the gap. Let it hang. Sometimes the most important part comes after the pause. The first thing someone says is often the surface. But if you stay quiet, they may reveal the truth. The pain, the hope, the fear, but only if you give them space. And when you do respond with care. Don't turn the conversation back to yourself. Don't hijack their moment. You can share your story later. But in this moment, give them the stage. They need it. Your patience is your power. Listening also means letting go of assumptions. You may think you know what someone is going to say, but if you listen closely, you might be surprised. They might not want what you think they want. They might not mean what you think they mean. And if you cut them off or jump to conclusions, you miss the gift of clarity. Practice listening with your whole body. Face the person. Uncross your arms. Nod gently. Breathe with them. Mirror their tone. Let your face be soft, not stiff. Let your eyes show that you care. All of this communicates, even in silence. The most persuasive people don't convince others through force. They persuade through empathy, through presence, through trust. And trust is built one quiet moment at a time. One deep breath at a time. One I hear you at a time. If you want to become a better communicator, start by talking less, listen more. Not just with your ears, but with your eyes, with your heart, with your spirit. Because that kind of listening changes people, it heals them. It makes them feel like they matter, and when people feel that, they will follow you. They will open up to you. They will trust you. In the end, communication is not a contest of cleverness. It is a bridge between souls. And listening is the plank that holds that bridge together. So sit still. Stay present. Listen deeply. That is where real power lives. Chapter 10. Speak with heart, not just words. People don't remember every word you say, but they always remember how you made them feel. The most persuasive speakers in the world don't rely on big vocabularies or polished grammar. They rely on emotion. They speak from a place inside them that others can feel. Their words are soaked in truth. Their voice carries weight, not because of volume, but because of sincerity. They don't just speak to people, they speak into them. There's a difference between rehearsed perfection and raw connection. You could memorize the most eloquent speech, recite it flawlessly, and still lose your audience if your heart isn't in it. But if you stumble, breathe, and speak from a place of genuine care, people will lean in, because heart speaks to heart. In every meaningful conversation, there is an undercurrent of emotion flowing just beneath the surface. When you tap into that current, when you let your own emotions be felt, that's when connection happens. Not when you're trying to be impressive, not when you're trying to be clever, but when you let your truth come out through your voice, your posture, your eyes. That's when people feel safe, inspired, and seen. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. In fact, some of the most powerful communicators are quiet. But their quiet isn't empty, it's full of presence, full of honesty. Their pauses are heavy. Their words feel like they matter, because they do, and people know they're not just talking, they're feeling what they say. To speak with heart, you must first feel deeply. You can't fake emotion, you can't simulate authenticity. It has to be real. That means letting your guard down. That means saying what actually matters to you, even if your voice shakes. Especially if your voice shakes. People don't connect to perfect. They connect to real. They connect to vulnerability. They connect to the crack in your voice, the welling in your eyes, the way your breath catches when you speak about something that matters. Those little moments, the raw, unedited pieces of you, that's where the power is. And when you speak from that place, your message isn't just heard, it's felt, it lingers, it echoes, it changes people. It also means slowing down. Rushing dilutes emotion. When you slow your pace, you give yourself room to feel what you're saying, and you give your listener space to absorb it. The best communicators don't rush their words. They let each phrase settle. They trust the silence. Your tone carries more meaning than your words. A warm tone says, "You're safe." A sharp tone says, "You're wrong." Even if the words are gentle, the tone tells the real story. If you want your message to land, you must align your tone with your intention. Speak with care, not with caution, but with compassion. Posture matters too. People read your body before they hear your voice. Are you closed off, arms crossed, eyes darting away, or are you open, shoulders relaxed, eyes steady, breath calm? These things are invisible threads. They carry your message before you even open your mouth. But don't get caught up trying to fix your body language. The truth is, when your heart is in the right place, your body usually follows. When you care about who you're talking to, when you really want to connect, your posture softens, your eyes engage, your voice lowers, not out of fear but out of respect. That's the beauty of emotional congruence. When you're aligned inside, it shows on the outside. One of the most overlooked aspects of heart-centered communication is intention. Why are you speaking? Are you trying to impress or express? Are you trying to control or to connect? Your intention shapes everything, even the words you choose. Before any important conversation, take a moment. Breathe. Ask yourself, not what do I want to say, but why do I want to say it? What do I want this person to feel when I speak? What do I want to give them through my word? That one shift, focusing on the gift rather than the performance, can change everything. Because communication is a gift. Your voice is a bridge. Your words are vehicles of meaning. And when they're powered by real emotion, they move people. Think about the last time someone said something that stayed with you for days. It probably wasn't perfectly phrased, but it was real. It was full. It had heart. That's what lasts. And speaking with heart doesn't mean you always have to be emotional. It just means being present, being real. Speaking what's true for you. That might be passion. That might be stillness. That might be laughter. That might be pain. Whatever it is, speak from it, not around it. If you're angry, own it without exploding. If you're sad, share it without collapsing. If you're joyful, let it be contagious. That's the art, channeling your emotion without being consumed by it. Let it guide you, not control you. One of the deepest powers of heart-centered communication is that it creates space for others to be real too. When you speak with vulnerability, it gives people permission to drop their masks. When you say, I don't have all the answers, but I care, people breathe easier. Because you're not pretending to be a superhero, you're being human. And that's magnetic. In relationships, this kind of speech builds intimacy. It says, I trust you enough to show you who I really am. That trust is the foundation of every strong bond. In business, it builds loyalty. Customers and teams alike want to follow people who speak from principle, not performance. Even in conflict, speaking with heart changes the outcome. Instead of saying, you're wrong, say, I'm hurt. Instead of saying, you never listen, say, I feel invisible when I talk. Do you see the difference? One attacks, the other reveals, and it's the revealing that builds bridges. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to be honest and present and brave enough to speak your truth, even when it's messy. Because here's the truth. People can spot a fake. They can smell manipulation, but they're drawn to truth. Even if your voice shakes, even if you stumble, if your message is real, they will listen. So when you sit down with someone or stand in front of a crowd, remember, it's not about perfect words. It's about true words. It's not about sounding smart. It's about being sincere. It's not about being right. It's about being real. Speak with your chest. Speak with your spine. Speak with your soul. That's how the most persuasive minds speak. Not from the lips, but from the heart. And when you master that, no one forgets your words, because they don't just hear you. They feel you. Chapter 11. Listening is where connection begins. In the noise of the world, everyone wants to be heard, but very few know how to listen. Real communication isn't just about how well you speak. It's about how deeply you listen. Because listening isn't a passive act. It's not silence. It's not waiting for your turn to talk. Listening is presence. Listening is power. When someone feels truly heard, something shifts in them. The guard drops, the defensiveness softens, and what remains is openness. That openness is where change happens. It's where love grows. It's where trust is built. Because people don't open up to those who talk well. They open up to those who listen well. The most persuasive minds in history were not loud. They were attentive. They could read between the lines. They could hear not just what was being said, but what was not being said. And that subtle awareness of tone, pause, breath, allowed them to respond in a way that made people feel seen. Listening is a mirror. When you truly listen, you reflect back to someone that their voice matters. And in a world that's constantly shouting, that reflection is healing. Sometimes more healing than advice. Because often people don't need answers. They just need to be heard without judgment. But listening takes effort. It takes you off center stage. It takes you out of performance mode. You can't listen deeply when you're busy thinking about what to say next. You can't listen when you're planning your rebuttal. True listening requires stillness inside and out. And here's the truth. Most people are starved for this kind of attention. Not surface-level nodding, not polite head tilts, but full, undivided attention. The kind that says, I'm with you. No phone in hand, no glazed-over eyes, just presence. Raw, human presence. And presence is magnetic. Think of the last time someone looked you in the eyes and really got you. That moment lingers. Because it's rare. In those moments, words don't even need to be perfect. What matters is that someone was there with you, for you. In relationships, this skill is golden. Arguments dissolve faster when someone says, I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. Defensiveness melts when someone repeats back, so you feel overwhelmed. Is that right? It's not manipulation. It's clarity, and clarity is connection. When you listen, you honor the other person's reality, even if you don't agree with it. You don't have to accept everything someone says to validate their feelings. You just have to care. That care comes through your eyes, your pauses, your posture. Children flourish when they're listened to. Partners thrive when their pain isn't minimized. Teams grow when leaders make time to understand the people behind the roles. Listening is leadership, it's service, and it's strength. Because listening doesn't mean weakness. It doesn't mean silence forever. It means you pause. You hold space. And when you do speak, your words carry weight. Because they come from understanding, not from assumption. In high-stakes moments, this is everything. A person who listens before speaking gains insight. A person who pauses before reacting earns respect. And a person who reflects before responding builds bridges. Listening is not about agreement, it's about acknowledgement. You can disagree and still listen with love. You can oppose someone's view and still make them feel heard. That balance, that grace, is the mark of emotional intelligence. And the truth is, people don't forget good listeners. They gravitate toward them, in times of grief, in moments of celebration, in the chaos of uncertainty. People remember who stood with them, listened without fixing, and cared without conditions. When you become that kind of communicator, one who listens with their whole body, you rise above the noise, you become the calm in the storm, the grounding presence in a scattered room, the steady voice in someone's shaken world. It's not easy, especially when emotions are high, especially when you feel wronged. But listening then when it's hardest is when it matters most. That's when it becomes a gift, a rare, precious act of generosity. And when you listen well, something unexpected happens. People start listening to you. Not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. You showed them the model. You built the bridge. You became the mirror of presence. Even in moments of silence, there's listening. The way you sit, the way you breathe, the way your eyes rest softly on theirs. All of it speaks. All of it tells the other person, I'm here. This is not soft. This is not weak. This is deep, grounded communication. It's the kind that builds lifelong bonds, unshakable trust, and transformational growth. Because before someone can change, they must feel safe. And safety begins with listening. As you grow in your communication journey, remember this: your voice is powerful. But your ears might be even more powerful. Because when people feel heard, they heal. When they feel seen, they rise. And when they feel understood, they transform. So if you want to be truly persuasive, not just momentarily impressive, listen first. Before teaching, listen. Before defending, listen. Before deciding, listen. Not with your ears alone, but with your heart wide open. That is where connection begins. That is where change begins. That is where the art of communication becomes something sacred. Chapter 12, Communication that Transforms. One word at a time. There is a moment in every conversation when everything changes. A pause, a shift, a word spoken not to impress, but to reach. That's the power of communication. Not as a skill, but as a force that transforms lives from the inside out. By now, you've come to understand that communication is not about being loud, it's not about being clever, it's about being real. And in this final chapter, we return to the root of what makes words truly powerful. Not performance, not technique, but intention. The kind of intention that leaves people better than you found them. The kind of intention that builds bridges where walls once. Real communication does not seek to win, it seeks to connect. It doesn't try to dominate, it tries to understand. It doesn't manipulate, it illuminates. And that shift from control to clarity is where transformation begins. In the beginning, you may have thought success in relationships, in work, in life, was about having all the right answers. But now you know, it's about asking the right questions, listening with the body, speaking with the heart, and showing up in a way that says, you matter. Transformation happens when communication goes beneath the surface. When we stop rehearsing our next line and start responding to the human in front of us. This is not soft. This is not vague. This is the foundation of every strong relationship, every effective team, every lasting bond. Think about the people who've changed your life. Did they give a perfect speech? Did they dazzle you with vocabulary? Or was it something simpler yet deeper? Maybe it was a sentence you didn't expect, a gentle tone when you were bracing for anger, a look of understanding when words failed. That's the kind of communication that transforms. It doesn't shout. It echoes. As you move forward into the world, there will be moments where you'll be tempted to slip back into old patterns, speaking to be heard instead of understood, reacting instead of responding, defending instead of exploring. But every time you choose presence over pride, curiosity over conflict, and listening over ego, you reinforce a different kind of power, a quiet power, a transformative one. You will meet people who struggle to express themselves, who shut down when emotions rise, who've never felt safe being vulnerable. And in those moments, your calm becomes their anchor, your clarity becomes their mirror, your grace becomes their permission to open up. Because the most persuasive minds don't change people through pressure, they change people through presence, through their consistency, through their ability to hold tension without collapsing into it. And maybe the most powerful part of it all is that communication, at its core, is not about what you say, it's about what you leave behind. Do people feel more seen after speaking to you, more hopeful, more alive? That is the legacy of every great communicator. The world doesn't need more noise, it needs more signal. More voices that build instead of break, that challenge without crushing, that confront without condemning. That's your role now, to become not just someone who speaks well, but someone who makes others feel well, valued, respected, heard, to become someone whose words have weight, not because they're loud, but because they're true. And you don't need a stage to do this. Every hallway conversation, every phone call, every dinner table moment, these are stages, these are arenas, these are sacred spaces where communication becomes leadership, where presence becomes power. You'll have days when the words don't come easy, when emotions are tangled and silence feels heavy. Don't run from that. Lean in. Sometimes the most transformative communication is the one that holds silence, honors the pause, and lets the moment breathe. Because sometimes it's not about fixing, it's about feeling. It's not about moving forward quickly, it's about standing still long enough to understand what's really going on. That level of awareness doesn't come from techniques. It comes from the practice of being honest, being grounded, being human. And as you practice that again and again, something shifts in you. Your voice becomes more certain. Your words carry more impact. Your presence calms rooms you once tried to dominate. People start coming to you not just because you speak well, but because they feel safe around you. Trusted, respected. And that is the greatest compliment a communicator can receive, not applause but trust. You'll see it in the way your relationships change. Arguments will become fewer, misunderstandings will become learning moments. Disagreements won't fracture connection, they'll deepen it. You'll see it in your work. Clients, colleagues, teams, they'll remember how you made them feel, how your clarity cut through confusion, how your empathy opened doors. You'll see it in yourself, in your own growth, in your ability to stay centered in difficult conversations, in your resilience, in your ability to speak even when your voice shakes. And you'll realize something that perhaps you didn't believe when you began this journey. You are a communicator. You always were. The skill was already inside you. This book didn't give you a voice. It just helped you uncover the courage to use it. Now the path ahead is yours to walk. Not perfectly, not always confidently, but intentionally. Every conversation is a chance. Every word is a seed. Every interaction is an opportunity to create impact. So speak like it matters. Listen like it matters, because it does. This world will change, not through grand speeches, but through thousands of quiet moments of clarity, empathy, and truth. And you, now equipped with the understanding, awareness, and heart, are part of that change. Your voice, your presence, your communication, it matters. Use it well. Thank you for joining us on this powerful journey through the art of effective communication, secrets to better relationships and success. If this book inspired you, transformed you, or helped you grow, please consider sharing it with someone who needs it. And don't forget, follow and subscribe so you never miss future audiobooks filled with purpose, emotional power, and practical transformation. Your growth is just beginning. And we'll be right here, every step of the way.